Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. My name is Shazna. I'm a psych major and I'm in the Cog Sci honors track with Dr. Learmonth. And my research is on culture and mental health. So my research title is Cultural Definitions of Mental Health and Are They Help Seeking? So past research has demonstrated that mental illness is viewed differently among various cultures, that some have positive and some have negative views on it. Ethnic groups such as Asians, Latinos, African Americans view mental illness negatively than the Caucasian group. Study done by Carpenter Song illustrate that Euro-Americans view mental health problems as professional disease and sought medical attention and counseling, whereas African Americans and Latinos do not seek mental health services, but they believe mental illness is a non-biomedical problem. Plus, Euro-Americans believe that psychotic medications balance their stability and instability and do not mind being on medication. In contrast, Latino and African Americans do not like to rely on medications. Euro-Americans acknowledge their mental illness, and Latino and African Americans believe they were being labeled. This indicates that ethnocultural variations in experience and meaning of mental illness and treatment limit the access of utilization of mental health treatment. So the current research is a combination of data-driven and theory-driven. So past research was just examining how different cultures view mental health. And this current research, I'm looking at how do different cultures define mental health and if it is acceptable to seek help in the individual's cultures and how the individual and would the individuals personally seek help. So therefore, I divided my research into two studies. So study one, I'm just looking at mental health and depression definitions from different cultures, and study two, just comparing, contrasting, and the help-seeking behavior. So there are several hypotheses that I want to look at and examine. First being that cultures will define mental health. Number two, the Western cultures will acknowledge mental health and depression better than non-Western cultures. And number three, the Western cultures are more acceptable, people seeking help for mental illness than non-Western cultures. So like I previously mentioned that the research is divided into two studies. So we're going to look at study one first. So study one consists of just asking people definitions of mental health and depression. So the participants in this study were all college students who came from 7 different cultures, and the countries are Russia, Italy, Montenegro, Philippines, Bangladesh, Ecuador, and Mexico. So the questionnaire was designed in Qualtrics, so participants were asked to complete open-ended questionnaire, and they were asked to define mental health and depression in their cultural viewpoint and their personal viewpoint. So the questions were, how would you define mental health in your culture, and how would you define mental health in your own perspective, and so same thing for depression. So study one results were analyzed using qualitative evaluation of the responses participants provided. So the responses fell into two categories. So 4 out of 7 cultures had did not acknowledge the existence of mental health, and 3 out of the 7 cultures they did. And then more cultures had definition of depression, even if they did not have definitions of mental health. So these are the examples of the responses the participants provided. On the left, these are the responses for mental health, and then the right is the definitions for depression. So as you can see, they have more definitions for depression rather than mental health. So study 2 is designed by using data from study 1, and I'm basically investigating different cultures' viewpoint on mental health and depression and comparing the cultures and to see if it is acceptable to seek help in their cultures. So I have total of 75 participants, all above the age of 18, 16 males, 59 females, and several different races, so 47 Asians, 5 Africans, 11 Hispanics, 10 Caucasians, and 2 others, and mixed. So study 2 was also conducted using Qualtrics. So at first demographics was asked, age, gender, ethnicity, where they or their family originated from, and then the portion about cultural beliefs. So the question was in my culture of origin, and then they were given 4 choices. The choices were in my culture of origin, do not believe in mental illness. Mental illness is not discussed openly. Mental illness is considered a personal failing. Mental illness is treated just as important as physical health. And the same thing in my personal perspective. If they believe in mental illness, if it's discussed openly, if they consider a personal failing, or it's just as important as physical health. And the same thing for depression. And then at the end, they had to rate from 0 to 10, 0 being not at all, 10 being extremely, that if it was acceptable to seek help in their culture, and if they would personally seek help for mental illness or depression. Results for study 2 was analyzed using quantitative evaluation. So mental health, for the part mental health in my culture of origin, 35% responded mental illness is not discussed openly, 19% responded mental illness is not discussed openly and considered a personal failing. And in my personal perspective portion, 83% responded mental illness is just as important as physical health or physical illness, and only 1% responded they do not believe in mental illness and they do not discuss it openly, and another 1% said they consider it personal failing. So there's a very large difference between how individuals view mental health rather than how their cultures view mental health. And for the help-seeking portion for mental health, 73% responded it would not be acceptable to seek help for a mental illness in their culture, but 67% responded they would personally seek help for a mental illness. So there's again a big difference. So this is just 2 pie charts of results from mental illness. So for as you can see, for the I would seek help for mental illness, this is way higher than if the culture would view it as acceptable to seek help for mental illness. And for the results for depression is kind of similar to mental illness. So for the portion in my culture of origin, 39 responded depression is not discussed openly, 15% responded it is not discussed openly and is considered a personal failing. And only about 17% responded depression is just as important as any other physical illness. And then for the personal perspective, a whopping 84% responded depression is just as important as any other physical illness, and only 3% responded it's considered personal failing, and other 3% responded they do not believe in it or discuss openly. And the results for depression help seeking, 43% responded it would not be acceptable to seek help for depression in their culture, and then 68% responded they would personally seek help for depression. Again, the pie chart demonstrates the percentage for personal view if they would seek help for depression is higher, way higher than cultural perspective if it's acceptable to seek help. So both study 1 and 2 were interesting results. In study N and 2, there were no differences in help-seeking behavior among both Western and non-Western cultures. The findings in study 1 most importantly demonstrate the definitions of mental health and depression from cultures that do not support help-seeking behavior. Study 2 results illustrate that cultural beliefs on mental health and depression do not influence help-seeking behavior. It also suggests that despite the cultures being not recognizing and accepting of mental illness, young individuals from such cultures are willing to seek help. So several limitations to the study is that the sample size is small and the male to female ratio was significantly not equal to each other, and that we had way more Asian participants than any other cultures. So I didn't have any, equal numbers of each culture's participants. And some future directions, I would look at all the other mental health terms and definitions. And for future studies, you should focus on culturally sensitive therapy, so that factors or specific aspects of diversity that counselors should consider when working with clients from different culture. So the study demonstrates that each culture looks at mental illness differently, and how should counselors and therapists consider that when working with clients from different cultures. And this is my reference list. And thank you everyone for listening and watching my presentation. And a special thanks to Dr. Lermont for being so patient and helpful. Have a great day everyone. Thank you.